All right, guys, welcome back to our second episode, 2-minute drill with Bomber and D-Muse. What's going on, Dom?
Good, not too much. Excited to get this off season wrapped up, but we're here today to talk about the moves and what guys did to get better. So excited to go through it.
Yeah, I think we're all still kind of waiting on the draft to see how that turned out. It's a little weird making your pick and still a day later having no idea how you actually did. But I think we can kind of break down some of these teams and how their offseason went, at least going through the free agency and maybe some of the trades they made. And we'll kind of go through it the same way we did last time. Um, I guess we'll start with the AFC North or NFC North since I've got the Bears already pulled up. So Biz he's been pretty busy this offseason. He ended up signing basically an entire offensive line. He got Raheem Mostert, so he's got a little bit of speed at the halfback spot. Rashawn Evans. He used a lot of his cap. And I didn't even start our countdown for our 2 minutes, but I'll wrap this up fairly quickly. But he used a lot of his cap. Went out, was really aggressive in free agency. You can tell he thinks that offensive line is going to matter this year because he added a lot of offensive line. And he had a decent draft, at least from what we think. He had a lot of picks. So I look for him to make a bit of a jump, but I think Paulie's going to magically turn it around here in season 2, and I think that may hurt the Bears. But for now, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, real life Bears fans would be ecstatic spending that money on the offensive line. So I'm sure they needed it in Madden as well. I kind of expect Biz to take a little bit of a jump, but I think that'll be a competitive division.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So next team in the NFC North is going to be the Lions and Paulie. Obviously, Paulie had a really good draft because he had 2 of the top 5 picks. He picked 1 and picked 4. I think he got the wrong quarterback, though. I think looking at the quarterbacks, that second one that went to Colt was the number one on my board. He had a first, second round grade for talent. And then he ended up taking, Spencer with the second pick. Guy won a Defensive Player of the Year award. Even he said after the draft that he didn't really like that pick. He wanted the other guy, but went with the award winner. Free agency-wise, signed Ronald Jones. He's going to probably back up Swift. Really not a ton of big-name signings here. Clellan Ferrell maybe helped the line, but he didn't really add much. He sat on the 2 picks and made them. I think I would have probably at least traded one of those picks to try and get some more assets, but I'm interested to see what we get out of season 2 with Paulie, or if he's even done making moves. But it didn't really do much to move the needle for me other than getting a quarterback. So if he's miraculously 10 wins after this, I think we all know what went down.
Yeah, we'll see if the tanking talk stops.
Yeah, which I don't think it will. All right, so that'll move us on. We'll go to the Packers. Packers and Meats, rough off season for Meats. Everybody kind of told him to watch out for it, and it happened. He lost Aaron Rodgers season 1. He had traded away Jordan Love to the Seahawks, and now he's searching for a quarterback, and he has Jalen Hurts. Not going to be great for him. He's actually put some weapons around him, though. In addition to what he already had, he brought back Robert Tonyan after Tiny let him walk, trading for him. So that was basically a pick for a rental of Tonyan. He gets him back. He's got Isaiah McKenzie. Picks up Jimmy Ward to add to the defense. Jaquiski Tart, again, another strong safety to add to the defense. But Tonyan and McKenzie, the big additions on offense. And I think Meats is going to be taking a step back as well. I think going from Rodgers to Hurts is going to be such a huge difference that it's going to cost him at least the first half of the season.
I agree. That's obviously a big quarterback change. Meets a good player, though. He's always in playoff contention. So I do expect him to have a winning record and be in the mix at the end, but it's definitely going to take some adjustment from Rodgers to Hurts.
Yeah, I think looking at the team, the defense is still absolutely amazing. I
Right.
mean, he added a bunch of superstars just through development. So I think the defense is going to carry him as long as he can avoid trouble with Hurts, which he's got young receivers in Watson and Dobbs, even though Watson went to superstar. He doesn't really have that big name receiver that's going to kind of carry him, and I think he may need that with Hurts. But we'll see this season. He's going to have a first place schedule, so it's going to be tough. And last team in the NFC North is going to be the Vikings, a team that
Oof.
that was already old to start. And then he brings in Malik Willis, that's a bit of a head scratcher for 2 first-round picks. Signs Jacoby Brissett in free agency. He actually did quite a bit in free agency, and a lot of it on the defensive side of the ball with Cole Holcomb, Jalen Smith, Kyle Fuller. That's adding 3 guys that are probably going to start for him. Problem is, they're all older as well. So the team, he traded away his draft picks to basically get older. I'm not sure how this is going to go for him. We'll see. Season 3 and 4 is going to be rough because he's going to have a lot of guys kind of just falling off and nobody really to pick up the slack. No young guys coming in because he's traded away damn near every pick he's got. I don't even know if he made a pick in the first 3 rounds last night.
He did not. Yeah. One
so
playoff win. Gouda's confident, and Malik Willis. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And he's got no picks. He's traded away this year's picks, future picks. It all kind of rests on Malik Willis, who he thinks is going to be okay running, 30 times with Dalvin Cook. But guys in this league will stop that, and then you're going to have to throw the ball. And that's where NYT found out. Obviously, NYT is a Titans fan, and he gave you Malik Willis, a guy he should have been excited about. That should tell you a lot right there. And clearly Gouda wasn't listening. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to duplicate that 12-5 record he had this year.
I'd be surprised.
Yep. All right, so that is the AFC North, or NFC North, sorry. Let's go to the AFC North, and we'll start with the Bengals.
Yeah, so the Bengals, double rice, no bean, coming off the division title, won 11-6 last year. He made a couple trades. He traded his second-round pick for a linebacker, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I think.
Yep,
I don't know.
Bucks.
Don't judge my pronunciation. He's all right. He wasn't anything special when I looked at him, but he might have a plan for him. He traded a 92 speed safety to Dan for a third and a future second, which if you're not going to start him, that's pretty good value overall. I thought he signed O.J. Howard, who is low overall, but good physical tools at tight end. And he drafted some wide receiver and corner, 2 pretty important positions, and then a safety. I don't know if that was a depth move, trying to replace the guy he gave away or what, but interesting to see how those rookies pan out. I think this is going to be his division. Again, the Bengals coming in, had a really good roster, so he didn't have to do anything crazy, and he didn't. He kind of stood pat and just fed around the edges.
Yeah, I think he did what he needed to do was just kind of maintain that team and make sure you have enough money to sign Burrow this coming off season and everybody else you need to re-sign. Other than that, I mean, he should walk through the AFC North. There's nobody there that's going to really challenge him. He missed 2 games. Also, Noel got a free win against Dump, and he still ended up winning it easily. So I think this is going to be pretty easily his division the entire way. I think I said it on Heat Check. My hot take was going to be that Bean wins every single division title in the AFC North, but doesn't win a single playoff game. And so far, after one season, we're still good to go with that prediction. All right, so
yeah, 1 for 1.
Yep, 1 for 1. So our next team is going to be the Browns, also in the AFC North.
Yeah, Noel was pretty quiet. I think if anyone in this division gives Bean a run for his money at some point, it'll be Noel. He didn't really do much in the trade market or via free agency. Again, this is another roster that's built pretty well. There aren't too many holes in it. He drafted a defensive tackle and an offensive lineman, trying to build up the trenches a little bit. But for the most part, he stood pat. He was above 500 last year, and he'll just be hoping to keep up with Bean and have a chance at the division. So we'll see how the Browns do this year.
Yeah, Browns not a team that's got much you can do. He's got no cap space. He's got no picks.
Right.
He signed a fullback and a right tackle, Blasingame and Fisher. Nobody really moving any needles there. And the problem with Noel is going to be if he doesn't develop some of those guys on defense, even though the team is pretty good, they're going to start to fall behind when everybody starts stacking up abilities because none of his secondary had abilities. And I don't know if he got any upgrades after the season, but Ward comes out as a star, Greedy Williams, Newsome, none of those guys are superstars. So if he doesn't pick up on the devs, he's going to have some problems and start falling behind Bean, who he's already losing the division to.
Yeah, I think internal needs to be the focus, not external, which seems to be his plan.
Yep. All right, so that's going to bring our next team up in the AFC North, and that's going to be the Ravens. And
Yeah,
Ravens and Field, I don't know what to not really much going on here.
yeah. I have two things written down. No moves, so there was no trading, no free agency. I don't think he was present at the draft, but he ended up with two tackles and a free safety.
Yeah,
I
no, he
looked at the
wasn't.
Ravens roster. The offensive line was in a pretty good spot beforehand, so we'll see how the rookies are, but they might be wasted picks. We'll see how the safety is. Again, hard to judge any draft picks with our
Yeah, and he
current
didn't even have
situation,
all his
but
picks because he traded for Kareem Hunt and then let him walk.
yeah, yeah, just a very inactive offseason. I know he's busy and hasn't really been around, so I don't really have much to say.
Yeah, not much to say about the Ravens other than just not really doing anything. All right, but a team that did do a little bit, we got the Steelers rounding out the AFC North.
Yeah, so Colt gave up on Kenny Pickett before the cycle even started. Traded for Jimmy G last year. He brought Jimmy G back this offseason, but not before he drafted his quarterback of the future, Curtis Clifford, a guy a lot of people liked. I wasn't scouting quarterbacks, so I'm not too up to speed, but I know a lot of people in our league liked him.
Yeah.
So he has him to try to develop. He helped him out by getting some pieces on the offensive line via free agency. Signed two tackles and a center, so that should help. I know the Steelers' offensive line's in pretty rough shape overall. He added Eli Apple in the defensive end as well for some veteran help on defense. But it's really all about the draft. You take a quarterback that high, that kind of has to be your focus. He added a wide receiver in the first few rounds, strong safety. So the future of Colt and the Steelers team is going to be contingent on Curtis Clifford becoming a usable quarterback, which at this point we can't be sure of or
Yeah.
against just because we don't know the ratings. But that's his plan, and he's going with it.
Yeah, I think he definitely got, I think, the best quarterback in the draft. And I'm glad you left me 50 seconds because looking at his free agency signings, there's something I got to point out, and I think Colt may be the worst team builder in the league. This is an example of what not to do with your cap space. He signed Dwayne Smoot, the left end. He's another guy. He's just another roster space. Nothing really special there. 4 years, $34 million. Andre Dillard, a left tackle. There's like a million of them in free agency that are going to be there afterwards that are within 1 or 2 points overall, right? 5 years, $28.5 million. Tariq Cohen, just another running back with a little bit of speed, 3-year, $9 million. Darrell Williams, an aging center that's, again, top of the free agency, but not by much. 4 years, $26 million. Dan Arnold, tight end, 3 for 10.5. Eli Apple, 3 for 11. George Fant, 3 for 16.8. And then Garoppolo, 1 for 6.7. Just too much money spent that's going to be there in the future as well that he's going to be paying for. And I'm not really sure what he's doing, but it's not what I would consider good team building to kill yourself that much.
No, he almost has to win this year, and he went 4-13 last year. So we'll see how realistic that is and how much he can improve.
All right, so next team is going to be the Buccaneers, NFC South. Buccaneers lost Tom Brady, ended up trading him away to the Eagles. Klink had a pretty good draft. I don't remember anything standing out too much other than he took a couple guys that I wanted with the left tackle and the tight end. But I don't even know if any of those guys were that great. Free agency, though, he signs Andy Isabella. He gets a little bit more speed in that receiver core. And then he brings in Matt Ryan to kind of fill that gap that Brady left, and hopefully the quarterback he drafted in the first round, Shelley, who was an undrafted free agent, was what he was projected for. I've heard rumors that he was at 100%. He was a second, third round talent. I actually had the guy on my list, and had he been there round 2, I may have taken him because I thought he was that good just looking at his ratings. So I think Klink had a pretty good draft, filled in for Brady as best he could. He's got Matt Ryan there now, and then he can bring in that rookie if it looks like he's going to be serviceable. And he's got Andy Isabella to add a little bit of speed. So I think he did all right this offseason. He didn't have to do too much to kind of stay at the top of that NFC South.
Yeah, he had a choice between keeping Brady around for what is almost assuredly his last year and kind of competing with the roster he has, or starting over at the QB position. He decided to start over at the QB position. We'll see how that works out, and if the decision was the right one or not. It's almost exclusively on how good Shelley is.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so next is the Falcons. And Dump definitely added some stuff to this team. He had probably a decent amount of cap space. Still think he gave some guys too big of deals, but he brought in a lot of talent on the offensive side with Paris Campbell, Juju Smith-Schuster, both of them, though, 4-year deals. Campbell for $21.6 million and Schuster for $42.4 million. Really big deals to kind of older guys. He also picked up A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. I don't know if he's got some type of Bengal fetish or something. And he even got Von Bell for 4 years, $33.6 million. Dominican Sue for 2 years and $12 million. So he's adding a lot of talent to the team. I don't know if any of it is really that great. I do like the 2 receiver additions because his receivers were not good. I just don't know if I'd have given him that much time. 4 years for Juju and Paris Campbell could be a lot, but we'll see what they do. Dump obviously had a really good passing year with the team he had, so I expect him to do even better now that he's adding better players.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent. He saw Tom Brady get shipped out of the division. He saw Tyrann Mathieu and Cam Jordan get shipped out of the division. I think he smells blood in the water, and he's going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another reason why he may smell blood in the water is because the Panthers did absolutely nothing. No signings, let everybody go pretty much. Just really nothing here for the Panthers. He made one trade with QB stud. He moved Brandon Smith, the linebacker, moved him for a pick. Didn't really kind of move any needle there. It was a 2nd round draft pick, I believe, in next year's draft anyway. So it wasn't going to affect him this year. He hasn't done anything. So not much to say about the Panthers.
Yeah, he didn't do much. I didn't like that move for him, honestly. That linebacker is 22 with 89 speed.
Oh, yeah, that was a terrible move.
You need to be able to find a spot for him on your defense.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, not much to say.
Yeah, it was a terrible move. I'm sure QB just hounded him until he gave in. And then the last team is your team, the Saints. Sounded like you had a pretty good draft. Obviously, we don't have a clue what anybody's draft looks like. Looks like you got a decent amount of guys on free agency, but nobody really that's moving any needle. Tristan Hill at defensive tackle is pretty good, but the thing to notice is you did what I would consider a much better job of building your team with free agents, as almost all of them are 1-year deals. That way, this season ends and then you're done with them. You can just sign another random guy, or you have cap space to do whatever you want with. So I like your offseason so far. I know you had to kind of cut a bunch of guys to try and work your way under the cap to get some trades done. I don't know how those trades are going to work out for you, missing Cam Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu. And then you added Mac Jones, which we all know your history with Mac Jones. It has resulted in 0 Super Bowls, though. So we'll see. We'll see if you can break that streak this season with him. But you moved out a lot of older talent, and it looks like you're trying to start to build something. And I like what you're doing right now.
Yeah, Saints are a tough spot. They're an older roster, not a lot of draft picks. So I worked my way into having 10 draft picks this offseason, moved out some guys who I just don't feel like I'm going to be a Super Bowl contender this year. So there's really no point in hanging on to Cam Jordan. Tyrann Mathieu's value only going down.
Yep.
Able to load up on first-round picks. And I really like the safety I got from Doink. He's 22. He's 23, but he has 92 speed, 97 acceleration. I am hopeful for his future and my ability to develop him. So we'll see. It's riding a lot on the draft and the 2 first-round picks we made.
Yep. All right, so that's going to bring us to the Bills and the AFC East.
All right, hold on. I got to get there. So can't find it. Sorry.
All right, so while you're looking, I'll give a little breakdown. But I didn't see the Bills really do much of anything other than the draft.
Yeah, no, they didn't do much. I actually liked their draft. They took Clay Hickman, a defensive tackle, and Jaden Winter, a middle linebacker. Those are 2 guys I was looking at that I was interested in. They also added an offensive lineman. You can usually get pretty good value on those around the 3rd round. But yeah, not a lot. Again, another roster where you don't really need to do much. DW hovered around 500 last year, and he's looking to build upon that. He brought back Arcega Whiteside, the tight end, and Jordan Poyer at safety. But yeah, not a lot of moves in free agency. And if those draft picks hit, then it'll be a success. But he didn't have to do much. Just ride Josh Allen and improve as the cycle goes on and use the roster you have.
Yep. Now, on the flip side of that, we have a team that did a little bit more, the Dolphins.
Yeah, Fins was pretty active. He was active in free agency. He signed Tony Pollard at running back. I like that signing. He added Matt apparatus on the offensive line to get some blocking help for him. He traded a future second for a linebacker from FAS, Chad Mumo, star development. So I like that move. Anytime you can get a for sure star development who's still fairly young, I think you should be willing to trade those draft picks just because the draft's such a crapshoot a lot of the time. And he had a lot of draft picks in the first 3 rounds. He made 6 picks, 5 of them on defense and an offensive lineman. A lot of picks in the trenches. He took 3 D linemen and an offensive lineman, added a linebacker too. So he's trying to get more physical, better up front in the front 7, add a corner in the secondary as well. I was a little disappointed with Finns. He won 6 games last year. I think he can do better than that. He has a lot of weapons on offense, just how the team's built. Adding Pollard will help. So I see some improvement from him, and I liked his offseason overall.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I would have liked to see him maybe move Tua and find a way to get a quarterback that's maybe a little bit better, a little more throw power, because you've got those 2 guys, Waddle and Hill, with so much speed, and then you really don't have the ability to get them the ball deep with any type of urgency, and it ends up sitting up there and you can get picked. But he had a good draft. I'm not as high on that trade for the linebacker just because now he's 24. He's still like a 71 overall. He's not very high rated. And it's a second-round pick from Finns is probably going to be a good one. But he had a lot of draft capital, so if you think you can do something with it, you might as well. I'm just not as high on it as maybe some other guys are. All right, and next up is going to be the Jets.
Yeah, I really liked your offseason. You're coming off 13-4 record. You won this division. I expect you to win the division again. I think you expect it as well with the moves you made. You traded for 2 elite veteran weapons for Zach Wilson as you continue to try to develop him. You got Travis Kelce and Keenan Allen. Overall, you sent out 2 firsts, 1 this year, 1 next year, and a 6th this year. Really like those moves. I think the Jets have a lot of young talent, so I don't know how valuable you feel the draft picks are, because I feel like you have enough guys that you're working on developing that adding more could just get overwhelming and you might lose track of a couple guys. So getting those veterans in and taking advantage early on after you've proven that you can win in the playoffs and in the regular season, I think that's huge. You also look to improve at linebacker. I think you brought Quan Alexander back.
Yep.
You drafted a middle linebacker with your 1 draft pick. So you're trying to get more athletic and better at that position. And a move I really liked under the radar, you signed Dan Feeney, offensive lineman. He's an Indiana Hoosier, so always love to see that. But I really liked your off season. I think you're going to be in the mix for winning the AFC this year.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the trading the picks. I looked at my roster and I don't really see where I need to add players. I just needed to get better quicker because when you look at quarterback Zach Wilson, he's young, but he has to be developed. Running back Breece Hall is coming around just fine. But receivers, I got a bunch of young guys that need to be developed. Tight end, didn't really have a great tight end. And then defense, everybody's just young. So the idea was to bring in some of these better guys and maybe accelerate Zach Wilson. He's going to give him targets and then take pressure off of Garrett Wilson. Doesn't have to be a number 1 guy. Now he can be like my 3rd, 4th option, and he should have more ease getting open. So we'll see if that works out. But the draft picks didn't mean much this season.
Yeah, figured as much.
And then the last team in the AFC East is going to be the Patriots.
Fig, always active. He decided to move on from Mac Jones. I pestered him all season. He finally gave in. He got a pretty good deal back. It's actually a deal or a version of a deal that I initially rejected, but my rookie corner developed a star. So he got a Debo back, who is a 76 overall star development corner. So he should be able to put him on the back end of his defense for a while. He also got a future first. And Jameis, who I think is going to act as his bridge quarterback. He said his goal was for Jameis to throw less than 30 interceptions, I think. Good luck with that. I don't know. But he did his best to give him some weapons. He signed OBJ and John Ross. So getting some receivers in the room. I know he was upset with his receivers last year. He made a lot of fuss about it in the chat this offseason. So some more weapons there, both on pretty reasonable contracts, if I recall. And then he was pretty busy in the draft, too. He drafted a defensive end, Jalen Bolden, who I actually liked. He was one of the guys I was looking at. He was in consideration with my 8th pick. So I think he picked before me, but it's a guy I liked. And he took a running back who I think is 21, so he'll have plenty of time to develop him. and he added some secondary help in corner and free safety, which the Patriots need. They're pretty unathletic back there and not a lot of promise to start. So overall, I think he had a pretty good offseason. There were no crazy moves, but busy as usual for Fig.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of the Mac Jones move for him because I think he just went from a quarterback for the cycle to Jameis Winston, and now you're looking for a quarterback. But if he doesn't think Mac Jones is the answer with that throw power, then you might as well pick up what you can for him because if you're not going to use him, he's just going to sit on your bench and rot. So probably not a bad move for Fig if he's not sold on him. All right, next we're going to move to the NFC West, and we've got the Cardinals first. QP usually pretty busy guy. Looks like he picked up some offensive line. He got what I would consider the best offensive lineman in the draft, the left tackle Elgin Jenkins. Not sure why he was even out there. Can't believe Meats let him go, but he does let him walk, and QP picks him up for a 2-year, $48 million contract. He also adds Romeo Okwara, who I think is going to be a little underrated, but he had like an 87 power move. And then he got Matt's user, Nasser Adderley, a Charger, had a really good postseason. And I think that was a really good offseason for QP. I think he still stays ahead of Dan, and I think he takes the NFC West at least for one more year.
Yeah, he saw what happened in the Super Bowl with Bosa and Mac just getting after his quarterback, signed Elgin Jenkins. Great move, and I agree. I think he's the favorite in the West.
Yeah. So then we have the 49ers and Dan over there as well. Dan picked up a lot of kind of backups, maybe kind of role players. Solomon Thomas, Kalike Hudson. Actually, it looks like he picked up quite a few Jets. Nobody really great. Trey Flowers adds a little bit of depth. But I think this 49ers team was good enough as they were. He just needs to kind of maintain them, and I think he's doing that pretty well. But I think he's still kind of just sitting below that Cardinals team right now. He didn't really do anything to get over the hump. We just saw him lose 3 in a row to the Cardinals, and I don't really see any moves that kind of change that outlook. I let Hudson and Thomas walk because they did really nothing all season. He signs Hudson to a 4-year, $12.4 million contract. We'll see if he gets something out of him, but he's already a little bit older. I think he's like 25 now, and he's not even a 70 overall. So unless he's going to use him, I don't think you're going to get much out of him. But I think he's still at least a year or so behind QP.
Yeah, I was surprised he was as quiet as he was. Dan's been known to pull some blockbuster trades in the past, but he must like his roster and likes where he is. So we'll see. I think they'll be competitive, but yeah, I definitely think QP is the favorite out west this year.
Yeah, and not much he could do with his first-round pick because it was already belonged to Finns, so he was kind of stuck there.
Right. Yeah.
So our next one is going to be the Rams. Rams and KJ. KJ always usually has a lot of cap space, and he signs guys. But this year, as the Rams, he doesn't really have as much. He does sign Maurice Hurst. I kind of like that signing. Get him a defensive tackle. He signed some offensive linemen and a kicker. Really nothing great there. The Rams roster is already pretty good. And he had a pretty quiet offseason other than moving Bobby Wagner. So we'll see how he replaces him. He did draft, I think, a middle linebacker, but whoever he drafted is not going to be Bobby Wagner, at least not from the start, and I think that's going to hold him back a little bit. Coop's going to be back and playing his games again, so I think KJ, at least this year, will be having his own pick, I think. So I guess there's that positive to come from it.
Yeah, not much to add. Just the Rams roster is pretty set. They don't have too much cap space. I also like Maurice Hurst. That's a good get.
Yeah. All right, and then we have the Seahawks and Coop. He already got his quarterback in Jordan Love. He added Tyquan Lewis, Ronald Darby, Quentin Spain, Trey Flowers. Really nobody of significance. I think Coop missed most of the offseason anyway. He may have got some of the free agents in. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got anybody, I guess, if he missed the whole thing. But we'll see what he does. I didn't really see anything stand out in his draft, but just being back and playing his games, I think will help him a little bit.
Yeah, no, just being back and not too much to talk about on his offseason. Good luck with the new job, Coop. I know you're still advancing through that process. Hope you get it.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't cut into his time any, and he can continue on with building that team. But we'll see what he does. All right. Next up is going to be the AFC West, and we got the Broncos up first.
Yeah, QB was pretty active after losing in the first round of the playoffs to you pretty handily. We mentioned earlier, he traded for that middle linebacker from the Panthers, Brandon Smith. Love that move for a future second. He's 89 speed, 22 years old. Great user in the middle of the defense. He finally got rid of KJ Hamler, who was on the block forever.
Yep.
He got the last pick in the second round this year. Hard to fault him. It didn't seem like there was much of a market for him. Take what you can get on an expiring deal. And he actually replaced him with Marquise Goodwin, a more affordable burner on the outside. He traded away a superstar D lineman, Draymond Jones, to the Vikings, who gave up 2 second-round picks. Again, we already went over good at trading away all of his picks. But he replaced him on the defense a little bit with Kachimailuia, another linebacker with good change of direction and decent speed that he can use. So improving his linebacker core. He also drafted a linebacker in the draft, along with the tight end, a safety, and a fullback. He doesn't seem too confident in his draft based off of his comments today. But again, we're all in wait-and-see mode. Overall, I mean, tricky situation in Denver. Russ's contract's a mess. They don't have a ton of cap space. They're kind of older, but they have some intriguing young guys. It's kind of a weird situation. I think he made the most of it. I liked his offseason.
Yeah, he didn't seem happy with the draft, but for all we know, he got all superstars. So,
right.
Really no way to tell just quite yet. Next up, though, the Super Bowl champ, Chargers.
Yeah, we talked about Hamler. Matt got Hamler, along with rookie wide receiver Greg Mims, who I believe you said was a first-round talent.
Top five talent.
So, wow. So 2 pretty good replacements for Keenan Allen, who he traded to you for a first-round pick.
Yep.
I think he's going to be set at receiver. He's still got Mike Williams, who converted that big 4th and 20 in the Super Bowl. He drafted a linebacker, Nolan Perkins, a guy I liked and had on my radar, along with a safety. Not too much he had to do with this roster. He freed up cap space to be able to extend Herbert long-term, got some draft capital, made the most of it, traded for Hamler, who's going to be a good deep threat for him. Good offseason. He didn't overdo anything. I know he was trying to trade Eckler. I like him not trading Eckler. I think having that shifty running back out of the backfield who can run routes and be a check down for you helps. We saw it plenty throughout the playoffs. So good offseason for Matt. And, I mean, the Super Bowl champ, he'll be right back in the mix.
Yeah, I think replacing Keenan Allen with Mims is big. He can lean on Mike Williams. He still has there, and then he can bring along Mims. And pretty much by the time Williams is either ready to move on or his contract is up and he has to decide, now you've got Mims probably ready to go. And so I like that move for him. I wasn't as sold on the Hamler deal. I know he said he doesn't think it's going to be a lot of money, but he was already pretty cap strapped trying to get Herbert signed. I don't know if he's going to be able to even re-sign Hamler. So time will tell how that deal works out.
If it helps him this year, if he makes a big play in the playoffs or anything, the last pick in the second round is completely worth it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
All right. So next up is the Chiefs and Mike.
Mike was also pretty busy. A few trades here. He traded Travis Kelce to you. Already went over that. Got a future first there. He traded away Marquez Valdez-Scantling to the Giants for a future second and a 7th-round pick. And he traded away Orlando Brown, probably his best offensive lineman, to Baz for a 3rd and a future second. So Mike went 6-11 last year, and it looks like he's not expecting to compete this year. Not hard to fault him, considering QB and Matt both won 13 games. He picked up a lot of draft capital, unloaded some salaries. I know Mahomes is making a ton of money. I liked his draft picks too. The tight end he got, Austin Hankins, really good. I think he's going to be a stud. He took, I think, one of the best running backs available. So, I mean, that's kind of a weakness on that Chiefs roster. That'll help. He took an offensive lineman and a safety as well. So I think it'll be more of the same for Mike this year. Just try to get those interception numbers down. But I think he'll be 3rd in this division pretty clearly behind QB and Matt.
Yeah, I think he kind of dismantled a lot of his team. I was surprised he traded Kelsey. As soon as he said Kelsey was available, I had to immediately inquire because you don't come across a guy like that very often. And it's not like he was on his last year or anything, so I'm not sure why he was ready to tear the team down. But he picks up a first, and we'll see what he does with this team. Last one, though, is going to be the Raiders for the AFC West.
Yeah, some run-of-the-mill free agent signings for a terrible two-step. Jacoby Myers at receiver. He basically signed an entire offensive line.
Yep.
Donovan Smith, Andrews Pete, Austin Corbett, and Bradley Bozeman. Again, he has to play Boza and Mack twice a year. Chris Jones from the Chiefs, Bradley Chubb from the Broncos, a number of other guys. So he's loading up on the offensive line. He drafted a defensive end, Damon Hopkins, who I kind of liked. I scouted him. Thought he was a good player. Took him early. Took a left tackle. So again, that's the entire offensive line. You fill out that with 5 new acquisitions. And then he went quarterback, which I found interesting. We'll see if he rides with Carr or if this quarterback looks good enough that he'll just give him the keys right away. He was able to make Zamir White into a superstar last year at running back. So maybe he's feeling his luck at developing rookies.
Yeah.
He also took a defensive tackle to build out the defensive line. So some moves around the edges, trying to get more protection up front. But I don't know. I don't see much of a path for him to compete in this division.
Yeah, I was actually kind of expecting him to take a quarterback with that number 2 pick. Thought maybe he'd replace Carr, maybe then try to send Carr somewhere else with the value for quarterbacks being so high. If you're in a position to grab one of those only really 2 that were good and you kind of let somebody down there further, I think Colt at like 6 got him. So a little surprised to see that, especially 2-step. I would have thought he'd draft a quarterback just because. But we'll see what he does. Go ahead.
I like not panicking taking a quarterback if you think there's an elite talent available. So he does have Carr, so we'll see how it works.
Yeah,
out.
if he turns out to be an elite defender, then he did okay there. So now we'll move on to the NFC East and the Commanders. Doink made a big move, picks up Tyrann Mathieu. That immediately helps his secondary, which is probably the weak part of this team other than quarterback, but he's pretty set on Sam Howell. Added some more defense to an already really good defense with Chase Winovich, Alex Anzalone, Monte Nicholson, Everson Griffin, which is a former Viking, so that's probably why he went after him. He likes Malik McDowell, signed him. Signed Julio Jones, Quincy Williams, Leon Jacobs. He signed a lot of guys. So we'll see what this Commanders team does. I know he was well prepared for the draft. And we'll see if he can take over that spot in the NFC East, because I think Woods picks up Tom Brady, and that's going to make it tough. But I think with the Commanders having an upgraded Sam Howell, he may actually be able to make some noise. Maybe he's a little more comfortable with the game. But I expect him to dominate on defense. I don't know why he wasn't able to last season, but we'll see what he can do with all these additions this year.
Fully agree. Having Tyrann Mathieu back there to complement that front seven is dangerous. This team's ready to win, so I expect him to take the division.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for it because I got Woods' first-round pick next year. I was able to hold on to that one in all the trading. All right, so next up is the Cowboys. Cowboys, not really much to say here because I don't think Graham's made the draft. And, of course, in true Graham's fashion, if he were at the draft, he probably would have drafted another running back. So it just worked out. We give him best available, and who is it? It's the top running back on the board. So didn't really do anything. He signed Taylor Heineke, Boston Scott, and Michael Burton. Really didn't really do anything. Gets computer best available for the draft, and I wouldn't expect much different season this year than he had last season. Probably near the bottom of the NFC East.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. These guys who missed the offseason and didn't make many moves, just gotta hope and pray you get some devs in the draft.
Yeah, he's gonna have to hope that the computer did him good. Next up, we got Woods, and the guy that I'm hoping to have the biggest kind of step back. Actually had a good free agency. He only picked up 4 free agents, but he did sign 2 receivers in an already crowded receiver room with A.J. Brown. Now, he moved Quez Watkins. He was able to trade him to Prime. But he got Scotty Miller, Alan Lazard. He's already got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown there. But he adds two more. Miller especially adds that 95 speed. Adds a left guard in Justin Pugh, and then picks up Juan Thornhill to play free safety, which he kind of needed a little help in that back end of that secondary. And I think this will be a good offseason for him. He had 4 first-round picks, and he ended up making all 4 picks. I think he'll be okay. Depends. Obviously, we have no idea how these picks are going to work out, but he added a lot of assets to an already really good Eagles team. I'm just hoping that maybe Tom Brady gets him in too much trouble and he falls behind Doink and just misses the playoffs. I'm not asking for top 10 pick, just maybe keep it out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle between him and the Commanders. Loading up on receivers, send Brady out the right way, just airing it out. And like you said, the roster's loaded. 4 draft picks. A couple of those had to hit at least, you would think.
Yeah.
So he has to be excited.
And he doesn't have a lot of holes on the Eagles. I mean, it's a good roster. So.
No, absolutely not.
All right, last team in the NFC is going to be the Giants, and Tiny, and quite possibly the luckiest man in the SML, because he lucks into what I think is going to be the best player in the draft. He gets Gannon, the wide receiver, who everything looked like he was going to be an absolute stud. Tiny misses the draft, doesn't submit any picks, and just happens to be that's who the next available best player on the board is, and that's who he gets. He also signed Tannehill to a 1-year, $23.8 million contract, his only free agent signing. I don't know. I don't know if Tannehill's going to play. Maybe he will. He's got Daniel Jones, but he just got him to star. You would think he would try to push for one more year and one more dev bump, but he's going to pick up Ryan Tannehill, and I guess he's going to have a quarterback battle. We'll see how long that goes on, but I would imagine he'll probably be the number 3 team in the NFC East.
Yeah, that receiver, Gannon, oh, man, that was one of the last things I needed, and I was still going to take him if he was there at 8. I think he's going to be unreal. I can't wait to see what he looks like. I think he's going to love him, and if he is going to push for Daniel Jones to develop further, he might be a big part of that.
All right, so now we'll move on to the AFC South for our last AFC division, and we'll start with the Colts.
Yeah, Prime's coming off a 17-0 year. Disappointed in the playoffs. He lost to Matt, but made a couple win now moves. He sent out a total of 3 first-round picks this offseason. Yep. Brought in Quez Watkins, give him a burner, 98 speed on the outside, and Cam Jordan, a win now, a defensive move. So he's going for it. He obviously coming off a 17-0 regular season, you're going to think you have a chance to win the title. He does. He said, screw these draft picks. We're going for it. And he only made 1 pick in the first 3 rounds, and he took a quarterback, Ethan Spencer. So that's going to be an underrated plot line to see once we advance and kind of see what they look like. Is this guy going to look good enough to where maybe he shops Baker Mayfield? I know he teased it. He had a couple offers out there. See if he's willing to hand the keys to this rookie or see how he handles that going forward. But a win now offseason from Prime, I wouldn't expect anything less, and obviously he'll be right back in the thick of things.
Yeah, and I think he's in a good spot. I mean, you look at that roster, there's no real needs there. He's got a really solid roster. Maybe he wanted another receiver. He goes out and he gets that with Quez Watkins. Maybe you wanted some more pass rush. He gets that with Cam Jordan. And now he's set. And like you said, he's got that quarterback. If it turns out the quarterback is garbage, just lets him walk. No harm, no foul. It wasn't a first-round pick or anything. But if he turns out to be usable and maybe even good, now you just got all those first-round picks back with Baker Mayfield. Even though we saw Monty trade him for a bag of peanuts and really nothing, Bobby Okereke thrown in on the side. I think Prime's going to hold on to him for a year, maybe 2 seasons, and still get more out of him than Monty got. So I think it was a good offseason for him. If Quez Watkins pans out, I want to see how he utilizes him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
All right, so next up in that division is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, a quiet free agency.
Yeah, quiet free agency. Signed Trey Turner to beef up the offensive line. If you watched any of his streams last year, it was a pain point for him. He traded for Orlando Brown. Already covered that a bit. I think I like both of those moves. Give him more time in the pocket. more ability to throw. He traded away Muma. He traded away a defensive tackle, Devon Hamilton, who's nothing special. He actually got a pretty good pick. He got the 5th pick in the 2nd round for him.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really nice move. In the draft, he grabbed a wide receiver and a safety. We'll see how they are. It's Faz's team. He's a Jags fan. I'm sure he didn't really want to touch too much, and I really did like the moves that he made overall. And he beefed up the offensive line, which I think was his number one priority going into the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that helps him out a little bit there. And then he picked up a bunch of picks. So we'll see how those pan out again.
Yep.
No clue how they're going to go. And next up is going to be RD's Texans.
Yeah, a few win now moves from RD in free agency. I think all these guys will be instant starters on defense. He signed Bryce Callahan, Akeem Hicks, David Onyemata. So, I mean, the Texans roster is pretty barren. Didn't have a lot of day one talent on it, and he was right there in that playoff game. That his wild card matchup against Matt, who went on to win the Super Bowl, could have really gone either way. So, adding some pieces on defense that can contribute right away, it's probably a good move. He drafted more defense. Drafted a linebacker and a defensive end in the first 3 rounds of our draft. He went 9-8 last year. I would expect that to get into the double digits this year. I don't know that he'll compete for the division title, just because his roster is still pretty far behind. But I think he's definitely going to be a playoff team, and I think his defense will be much improved with all the talent he brought in.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, he was right there with Matt, and that's what the Texans, as they were. So bringing in some guys that he likes, I think it's going to give him a big boost going into next season. All right, so the last team we have is the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, NYT. He got rid of Malik Willis, kind of starting over at quarterback. He traded a future 3rd for Marcus Mariota. He signed Carson Wentz. We'll see who he ends up rolling with out of those two. I mean, I don't think he thinks either of those guys are long-term options. They aren't. But decent bridge starters for what it's worth. He had to take the Malik Willis deal. He got offered 2 firsts.
Yeah.
And the way Malik Willis looked last year, there was just no way he could turn that down. Who knows what Guta's first this year will look like. He traded for Bobby Wagner in sort of a win-now move. I don't know how I feel about that if you're going to trade away your quarterback. But he did it. He signed Will Fuller as well in free agency, kind of a deep threat receiver. And he drafted 2 offensive linemen and another receiver. And somehow there's another Ridley. The receiver he drafted, last name Ridley. Happy for the Ridley family. That's now 3 NFL wide receivers. But, yeah, we'll see. I think he's going to have a hard time getting wins within this division. I think he's going to be in 4th again. And he needs to find a quarterback next offseason. But, again, he had to make that Malik Willis trade if that was the offer. It was just too much value to turn down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the best move he could have done, was getting rid of Malik Willis. I think it helps him on offense. I think he rolls with Mariota because I think Wentz is just too bad. But I think he goes with Mariota. I think that improves his offense already. And then adding Fuller gives him a speed option. And then Bobby Wagner, like you said, it's a win-now move, which doesn't make sense when you were the worst team in your division. But at some point, you got to try to win, and I think that's what he's going for now. Maybe before RD builds up that team too much and Faz gets his guys in place, maybe he thinks this is his chance. So a good offseason overall for him, and he picks up all those extra picks.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
Right. Yeah, so that's going to do it. That was our 2-minute drill. We went around the entire SML in 48 minutes, so we were able to stay ahead of 2 minutes for each team. And that's really all I got. Unless you've got anything else, that's going to do it for this episode of 2-minute drill.
No, it was fun. Good luck, everyone. I'm really excited to see these rookies, and yeah, I'm excited. Let's get to the season. This offseason feels long.
Yeah, if the last couple guys could go ahead and submit their draft board that takes all of 30 seconds to do, that would be great so we can move along. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for being on, D-Muse, and until our next episode, which may be around trade deadline time, this has been 2-minute drill.